you, Mike. Thank you guys for being here. I wanted to share a story with you. A friend of mine who now lives in Florida.
Use the microphone. You're going to eat it.
Oh, Lord. A friend of mine who now lives in Florida came to LA for business. He's a minister as well, and he was one of my students in Detroit, Michigan. And he was ordained in 202. And I have not seen him since I left Michigan 8, 10 years now. And he was here in LA, well, not here in San Bernardino County, but in LA County for minister business. And he decided that he was not going to leave California without seeing me. He had no clue that I was nowhere close to LA, about 2 hours away. So he called to make arrangements to see me, and when he called, I just so happened to be at my cousin's house in LA. It was like my cousin, her name is Sheila, had barbecue ribs stacked all over her kitchen counter. And I love barbecue ribs, and I remember pinching off of one of the ribs to taste it because her food is so good. The rest of the kitchen counter was covered with all types of food. So as I was pinching and biting off of the food, the doorbell rang. I knew it was Prentice, and Sheila's son, Kevin, answered the door. And I was right on his heels because I knew who it was at the door. And as Prentice stepped through the door, I wanted to introduce the two of them. And I said, I was so delightful and happy to see him. I said, Prentice John Davis, meet my cousin, Kevin. Oh, Kevin, what's your middle name? He says, Kevin. I said, okay, Kevin, what's your first name? He says, Larry. I said, okay, let me start over. Prentice John Davis, meet Larry Kevin Davis. And as I said Davis, that light went off. Oh, you two may be related. You have the same last name. You two should look into that. You spell your last name the same way, D-A-V-I-S. And that light bulb came on. That's when I woke up. During that dream, there was a message in that dream for me. And we all get our messages in different ways. So as I was thinking about calling Prentice to check with him to see if he was coming from Florida to LA, I never did do it. I never did call him. And it was about Wednesday. Saturday morning, I got a call from Detroit. And it was a friend of mine who is also a minister, and she was calling to tell me that she's coming to LA for a family reunion in July. And there were clues in that dream to point me to, I'd like to say a premonition, give me a vision. Because as I was analyzing the symbols and signs in the dream, I was pinching off of ribs. There was some kind of celebration. There was a bright, sunshiny day. So I knew I was at Sheila's in LA, Sheila being my cousin, for a celebration. And by that light bulb coming on about Sheila Davis and her son, Kevin Davis, have the same last name as Prentice Davis, that told me that was some kind of family there. I even suggested to Prentice and Kevin to go back in their family history to see if they were related, because our last names connect us to a physical family. Our first names gives us our individual identities. So there was that hint in the dream telling me that there was a family reunion. It's just that it came from a friend of mine in Detroit, which that's where I know Prentice from, Detroit. It's just that he now lives in Florida. He has pastored 3 churches in Florida. So I was figuring, and not to say that Prentice still won't be in LA, because as this dream continues to unfold, Sheila Davis, Kevin's mom, is in Victorville, and she came to Victorville Sunday to stay and help her mom, who lives in Victorville. And I didn't know that, so I went to Sheila and asked her, would she make me some spaghetti? So I could have, I love her spaghetti. So the dream was still unfolding. There are clues and signs and symbols in your dream that point you to different things. And I've been dreaming about food for months now. I understand that, and I know that when I dream about food, or when you dream about food, food represents nourishment, something that your body needs. So pay attention to what kind of food. Are you eating junk food? Are you eating food to heal you? And I've been praying for healing, to walk freely without this walker, as you can see. So I've been getting glimpses. I even dreamed since that time, leading up to here, that I was eating a salad of tomatoes and lettuce and ranch dressing with a taco shell. I don't know how healthy that is, but vegetables are very healthy. So our dreams is always telling us something about ourselves. And we get inspiration from many places. We get inspiration from other people. We get inspiration, I really get inspirations from dreams. I get inspirations to when I'm whining and praying to God, asking God to heal me, asking God to help me. But I notice that I don't shut my mind off and get quiet enough to hear the answers. So whenever I go to sleep and get my conscious mind out of the way, then God can slip in there with a dream. Because usually I do take time, if nothing but to jot down main ideas, what stuck out for me in this dream, so I won't forget it. And write down your dreams in details, and then go back and look up and see what your dream means. What is this dream telling me? Pay attention to the weather. It was a bright, sunshiny day. There were clues in that dream to let me know it was some kind of special celebration. And there's also the Super Bowl. Gonna be in LA when tomorrow. The weather people are predicting is going to be, what, 80 degrees in LA? So, you know, Prentice may just pop up. So that dream was really informing me that, okay, there's a family reunion coming here. There's somebody close to you that's coming to LA, and they are looking for you, are going to try to find you while you are here. And so far, one person have stepped up, Rose Cooper. Her family is having the family reunion here. So I was just so excited. I had to tell her the story. She knew about me and my dreams because she asked me to help her with the dreams. And 2 things to remember. Anytime you have a dream, remember that everything and everybody in that dream represents an aspect of you. It's a message in it for you. So food, there was a message in it for me, and food is important to our healing. So I feel like my dream, since I've been dreaming about food so much, is going to play a great big part in my healing and getting my strength back and my nourishment that I need for my body. everything and everybody, the desk, the chair in the dream is an aspect of you. Dwight mentioned some kind of festival in Riverside. Dickens. And if you notice, if the furniture or the dress or something in the dream point you to another era or another time, that is a clue for you to know there's a message coming to you in that dream from that period or from that time. I've had dreams about being at the small house. I was raised up in Alabama, and so with me taking that clue, I've had to stop and say, okay, this dream is trying to show me something that may have started back then, or something that's going on that's still in Alabama now, because my mom is still alive and lives in that place. So there are clues and things coming to me, into you, because we all dream. I've had people to say that, oh, I don't dream. We all dream. You may not remember your dream, but everybody dreams. There are 6 common types of dreams. So whatever your dream is trying to warn you about, get the message, because the Spirit, the Holy Spirit is what I like to call it. You may want to call it your higher power, universal guidance, whatever you want to call your higher power, because there's a wisdom in you beyond your 5 senses. And there have been dreams that I've had. I literally had to stop and say, okay, why is it that I had this dream? Because I would dream about my mother, or I would dream about my daughter, or I would dream about Prentice John Davis. Why am I dreaming about Prentice John Davis? Why is it do the Holy Spirit want me to know about what's going on in July? Because Rose Cooper from Detroit said she would be here in July for a family reunion, and I want to spend 1 or 2 of those days with you. I was warned about that before I ever got that phone call 3 days later. So we have clearinghouse dreams to clear out the clutter and all the stuff that's going on in our minds. Sometimes we just have to clear things out, not only physical clutter in our environment, but we have to clear out our thinking, our emotions. And then we have dreams that come to teach us. I have a lot of dreams that's come to teach me about healing, because I am very into healing and getting all the benefits that this body promised to give me while I'm in it. And I want it to function as I was promised it would function. So I get a lot of teaching dreams. There are also problem-solving dreams. How many of you ever said or told your kids or heard your mom say, when you wanted something, let me sleep on it? I think about it. That let me sleep on it. That dream, you want to solve a problem and you sleep, and there are prayers you can say when you really have a pressing issue that you can say before you go to sleep. And ask in prayer. I brought it. I read it to you. Take my glasses off so I can see. Tonight, I will have and remember a dream containing information for the solution to this problem. The problem concerns, and just give a brief description of what you're asking for a solution to that dream. Don't write a novel, just a brief description. I will have this dream and will recall, understand, and record it upon awakening. I open myself to the highest possible insight and guidance. And notice you're making a commitment that once you get this dream, You'll remember it, you'll understand it, and you'll write it down when you wake up, that you just won't take off and run and go start your day and forget the dream. And I do that a lot, just take off. And sometimes I'll stop at something while I'm drinking water or washing my face, and the dream will come back to me. How many types did I give you? 3? Clearinghouse, teaching, problem solving, premonition, visionary, and outside interference. Outside interference type dreams is when you sleep with the TV on. There's so much noise going on that you go to sleep, but you can still hear the TV, and you wake up and you remember what was playing on the TV, that it wasn't a dream or a message that was trying to, even if you say you had a nightmare, that nightmare came to tell you something or warn you about something. Any questions before I continue?
Reiterate the last of the kind of dreams?
I'm sorry.
Okay, I gotta eat it. Okay. Can you please reiterate the last 3 kinds of dreams that you mentioned so I can write them down?
Okay, premonition, prophetic, visionary, they are the same, and outside interference. I have I know a lady I've been following, Tabitha Brown, for a long time. She's been around about 20 years. She came to California from North Carolina or South Carolina. To Hollywood. She came from South Carolina to Hollywood because she wanted to get into acting. Her study and profession was acting. And she had always heard when she came 20 years ago or longer that making videos, you wouldn't be respected for making videos if you want to do serious acting and be in films and be in movies. So she just kind of dismissed that. So in her being programmed, that's our 5 senses that connect us to the outside world, she believed that she wouldn't have success if she got into videos. So she was sick also, and she made a promise to God that if you heal me, you can have me. And eventually, between her making that commitment, she became a vegetarian. Notice she changed the way she was eating and what she was eating and how she was eating. And her body was healed. So she forgot about that promise she made to God, that if you heal me, you could have me. And then she started driving for Uber. And she stopped at Whole Foods and bought a sandwich. And she was eating this sandwich. She was vegetarian because she didn't really believe this vegetarian thing is gonna work out. I need some meat, she says. So she had a dream, and in her dream, she saw a small TV inside a big screen TV, and she was confused about what that meant in her dream. But she was smart enough to know that dream contained a message for her. So she prayed about it, and she asked God, what does this mean? And God says, make videos. She was like, no, I'm not making no videos. And God reminded her, like he does me all the time, we argue. Remember you told me if I healed you, you could have me. I mean, I could have you. And she said, oh, well, you called me on a bad day. So I wanted to be healed. But she was wise enough to know to follow those instructions. So while she was enjoying that vegetarian sandwich, trying to make up her mind that that vegan diet was going to work for her. That voice said to her, record this, make a video. And she said, don't nobody want to see a video of me eating. But she was obedient. She made the video, and the video went viral while she was on her shift driving for Uber. And her husband was the one who called her and said, what have you posted online? And she said, just a video of me eating a sandwich. And he told her how many viewers she had. And by the time she finished her shift, I believe she said she had like over 1 million viewers that was interested in food and what she was eating. And today, she is known for making food videos and making smoothies and organic foods that is healing and good for your body. And from her making that video that the Lord was trying to tell her to do in her dream, some manager or somebody who make decisions at Whole Foods saw that video because she mentioned that's where she got her sandwich from. They hired her as a spokesperson for foods, for Whole Foods. And now she calls herself a food influencer. Is that how you say it? But that's how I know. I started watching her videos and learning because she had really great smoothie recipes, but that still started from a dream that she tried to ignore. And that was what she actually came to Hollywood to do, make videos. But during that time, videos just wasn't the thing. And now everybody's making videos. My niece can make a video and she's 10. So everybody's into making videos. But she is successful. She's known all over the world. She's famous, and she obeyed the message that she received in the dream. And now she's healed and well and dealing with food. Yes, Mike.
We need to move on to the next speaker, so.
Oh, okay.
But let's all give.
I have so much more. Thank you.
Anyway, I have always believed in the win-win kind of happy endings. And that's been a centerpiece in my life for a long time, particularly when I was a cop. And it's something that developed for a long time. I mean, think about this for a second. What if our interactions with other people could turn conflict into calm, or even prevent crime? I mean, it sounds like a fairy tale, but that has been a centerpiece of my life all the way through law enforcement and into my time working in security. So my first step into law enforcement, I became a reserve officer with Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And in that time, more than anything else, I was listening and taking notes because we rode as a second person in a car with a regular officer most of the time. Sometimes we'd have a reserve unit and so on. But a lot of times I'd be riding with experienced officers and I would really look to see what they were doing. And I found that a lot of those officers fell into a couple of categories. One were the warriors. And warriors have their place in law enforcement, but the other kind are peacekeepers. Those folks who can go into a very difficult situation and come out without anybody having to go to jail or anybody having to get in a wrestling contest, which really plays hell with the uniforms. So those were the kind I saw, but really it occurred to me as I was watching these folks, that the best kinds of officers had both. Because basically, if you don't have confidence in your physical skills, it's very difficult to be a negotiator because you're dealing with fear at the same time. So those officers that had a well-developed plan B, physical force, could use their time to de-escalate explosive situations. I learned while I was in the academy that police communication took a downturn when police were pushed into patrol cars, as opposed to walking a beat. Now think about this for a second. When a peace officer is walking a beat, they have to be interacting with the citizens that they come in contact with. It encourages friendliness, it encourages communication, all of those things. In a patrol car, you don't actually interact with folks until you pull the car to a stop and come out, and then you're in a crisis situation. So this was something, but the academies that I went through, one for reserve and one for regular, didn't talk much about how to overcome that disadvantage. So it was something that really became a centerpiece for me as I was going through law enforcement. There was something else about that also. When you come out in contact with somebody who is in an emergency situation, Walter Cannon came up with the idea of the fight or flight syndrome. And the fight or flight syndrome means that somebody is really on the edge and they're ready to go to war. So if you come in contact with that person who is close to the edge, it's very easy for that to go either way, and it's important to be able to let some of the hot air out of that balloon before you really interact. And that was some of the first things that I learned. I called my interaction with anybody a game. And the result of that game for me was to be able to get through the whole thing without making the situation worse than it was before, and especially to become a partner with that person eventually, so we get on the same page. And I found that even when somebody has to receive a ticket or go to jail, the way that that is done can make a huge difference as far as that's concerned. So that was the game, to be able to get into it, to de-escalate situations, to make things better than they were before. The other thing that is a problem with a lot of folks in law enforcement is the tendency to try and do things too quickly, to gain control over the situation immediately, to be able to have people do exactly what you want them to do. And really, the first thing I learned was to slow it down. That there's no rush to be able to come in contact with people, even when they're in difficult situations. The other thing I learned was the power of listening. That if you listen to people closely, even if it requires duct tape, you know. I carried a roll on my Sam Brown, you know, for a long time. Even if it requires that, when you listen to people, they give you the context that you need in order to know how to motivate. When you can see the world clearly through their eyes, it's very easy to be able to then communicate, talk with each other, and work out a common strategy. And we'll talk about that a lot later, because as I mentioned, this was a journey. You know, I learned things in law enforcement, I learned things in security that stayed with me for a long time. When I was a supervisor, I learned some different lessons. One was that the people that worked under my, when I was a sergeant, the people that worked under me were more important than I was. Why is that? It's simple, because they're the folks that had direct interaction with, they're the folks that had direct interaction with the public. So their job is more important than my job, and the only way that I could really justify having stripes on my sleeve, which I really liked. I couldn't pass a mirror without checking those things out. They were really nice. But if I didn't see that, if I think that I am more important than them, then I fall into the second trap, which is, as a supervisor, I only look at what my guys are doing wrong. And that can be a real problem, because basically I need people to feel confident in themselves, and a supervisor can scuttle that confidence in a heartbeat. The other thing that was important as a supervisor was learning from the people that were doing the job. If somebody had a great idea and they're doing the job better in some way than maybe I could do it, I had to take notes. That was another important thing of being the supervisor. From law enforcement, I went into security consulting. And UCLA was probably the centerpiece of that. I worked for the Southern California Injury Prevention Research Center. It took me maybe a month on the job before I could get all of that out in one breath. But we were studying robbery prevention. We did that in concert with Los Angeles Police Department. And we looked at small retail establishments that were all over the place. And there were a lot of things that I learned. But one of the things from the initial study that was interesting, these were things that they explored before they got there, looking at the literature. They found that when small shopkeepers really got along with the general public that they served, there was less tendency that they were going to be robbed, and if they were robbed, less of a chance that they were going to be injured as a result of that. That was fascinating, and I found even more when I went out there, and I talked to at least one store owner. It was a Korean family that ran a small store, and it was interesting that not only did they not get robbed, but one time when they had riots that were going, throughout that area, they had gang members that surrounded their location to keep it safe. Go figure. And there were other things like that we found. The idea of security is not the knowledge I have in my head, but the idea of picking things up from other people. That's really important. And one of the things that I found when I was doing the school studies was that there was a former gang member that went out to all of the gangs in his area and negotiated the school as neutral turf, as a place where you don't do anything related to gang activities. You limit it to that. And that was something I never would have thought about when I was doing the initial studies. But one of the other fascinating things had nothing to do with any of that. It had to do with UCLA sending the three of us that were doing the field studies out to a conference in Dallas, Texas. So there were three of us, and we got on the plane and we changed planes and we went over to the 4-star hotel that they had set up for us. And I was the one that was checking us in, and I said, "Hi, my name is Jim Grayson. My comrades and I are checking into the hotel." And they said, "Oh, no, you're not." "Oh, no, you're not." What kind of an answer is that? And he said, "But it's not a problem, because we found another hotel for you." And the story was that apparently FBI had a lot of people there and they wanted to get all of their people in one place, so we were unceremoniously removed from that. And as much as I like fan belt inspectors, it was something, the fact that they would say that it's not a problem, it was a problem for me. I was upset, but they said, "We've got you this other hotel." The other hotel was Crown Plaza. And the customer service at that location was amazing. In other words, whatever you want, people were exceeding your expectation. It was so friendly. You couldn't pass anybody without getting a smile. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. I have to learn how this works. And the guy that I talked to was not the president of the company. I talked to a doorman who was a very friendly guy. And he said, there are two things that they teach us when we come on board. One is called the 10-5 rule. And the 10-5 rule was within 10 feet, eye contact, smile, and nod of acknowledgement, you know, acknowledging your presence. Within 5 feet, a short greeting or some kind of an interaction. I thought, geez, that sounds like a great idea. And the other thing they said was, and they didn't have an acronym for this, but they said, we have this 4-part slogan that's kind of a centerpiece for us, and that is friendly, reliable, exceed expectation, and K was keep it clean. So that was the idea, and I was so enthralled with this. Not only that, but they reinforced that in the meetings that they had, so they would go over friendly. You know, what did people learn? The supervisors learned from the people that were at ground level and interacting. And like I said, the doorman for this organization bought into this. He was so happy with it. And when I got back, I started going around the circuit of ASIS, American Society for Industrial Security. Now it's ASIS International, and the American has kind of fallen off because it's really grown. So I went to a lot of meetings and I talked about this. I talked about the advantages of having customer service as a central piece of security, and what it would take and how to put it together. And I had people that were just ecstatic about the idea. Oh, we're going to do that. And then months later, when I would talk to people, and none of that would get done. So as I went on, I really wanted to find a place where this could take hold. And it took a while, but I found a company called Pacific Protection. And Pacific Protection, the friend of mine that owned this, we went through our security management credential, CPP, that we went through that together a long time ago. And he had listened to the idea and he said, hey, I've got a company, play. Set this stuff up. Make it happen. And so I started thinking about all of the things that were necessary to be able to make this a functional part of that company. One of those things was the 10-5 rule, and which I stole but I only steal from the very best, so it's really not plagiarism. And I turned that friendly, reliable, exceed expectation, and keep it clean into an acronym, FRED. We wanted to hire Freds. And that was friendly, reliable, exceed expectation, and do the right thing. Now that's important, more important than keep it clean to a security officer. And we talk about these things. The other thing that was difficult in this, we had Fred, we had Fred, friendly, reliable, exceed expectation, do the right thing. We had the 10-5 rule. Then we needed a de-escalation technique. And I got that from a book that I reviewed for the security management magazine that ASIS put out. And the book talked about HERO, which was a really clumsy accident. H was hitch on to the customer, E was empathize, and so on, and it got more obscure as it went. I changed the acronym into LEAP, and LEAP stood for listen, empathize, alternatives or action steps, and the last was person to person, which means that one person can de-escalate another, can calm the waters. And you think about this, whenever you encounter an angry person, the two of you are in conflict. You see each other as opponents. By listening, you automatically show respect for the other person. You automatically You know, and even if they're yelling, this is cathartic, this is what you want. And over time, they run out of steam. The key thing is keep listening and ask clarifying questions so that you really see the world through their eyes. Action step or alternatives means that at this point, we've listened to them, so rather than being opponents now, we have a partnership. And in that partnership, the two of us are exploring possibilities to solve the problem that is over there, not between the two of us. We talk about that, we find the next rational step. The last piece of that is person to person, which means that only one person can de-escalate another person. So that was the way that works, from hero to leap. The supervision challenge was something else that we really had to work on because supervisors were already in place. For hiring new people, we knew that we needed friendly people. But a supervisor, if they're just out looking for things that people are doing wrong, can burn the customer service right out of the best security professional. So we tried to work with supervisors, but that was an ongoing problem. It was something that was difficult. It was fortunate for Pacific Protection that one of their best customers was Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo was going through a transition, really heading towards maximizing customer service. And as a result, we fit right in. And they liked that enough to where the person, the company grew from about 200 to probably 400 persons before Melvin finally sold the company. And now things probably go back to the way they were before, get a warm body, get them out there, and so on. It's difficult, but we had a lot of success for a period of time. The last thing I'm going to talk about was the fact that even in the middle of all of this, I still had my own rough edges. You know, sometimes I would get emotional, at times when I didn't need to get emotional. A lot of these times, you know, the emotion could be about, have you ever wanted to talk to a company and gotten their automatic phone system? You know, difficult kind of a thing, and I would lose my temper over that very easily. I remember my wife, who passed away maybe a year ago, I could hear her voice saying, "Jim, you're yelling at the TV, it can't hear you." You know, so this is something that I felt I really should take on. So basically, I worked this out. Whenever I used emotion where I didn't need to have emotion, which is most all situations, whenever that happened, or whenever I used a swear word that I really didn't need to use, which is pretty much all of them, unless it was part of a joke, I would apologize out loud to Margaret, my wife. And the funny thing is that actually worked. I don't use many swear words. There were a lot of times that I would judge a task by the number of swear words it would take me to get through the process. And by apologizing to my wife, Margaret, for those things, I have found that I have to apologize far less. In other words, it's kind of another happy ending. So anyway, if you have any questions, now is the time for that, and then we'll go get a bite to eat.
Did you ever apologize to one of the people that you had to stop?
As a police officer, this is in respect.
Yes. Basically, I didn't have to too much. You know, the funny thing is, when I was interacting as a police officer with other people, I was focused on that task. And I was focused on respect, that rather than the them or us syndrome that police can get into, I tried to see myself as part of them, as one of the people, like a beat officer. And so there weren't many times that I had to apologize, although there were times that I screwed up. I mean, I'm a human being and I have made mistakes. I've made a lot of them. Hopefully I've learned from a few of those, but I don't remember having to apologize too many times. Any other questions? Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. So glad to be with you here today. So I am, as you see, my presentation is Change Your Life in a Snap, How to Use Your Cell Phone as a Transformational Tool. So, who doesn't have a cell phone? It's out there. Okay, now, is there anyone that doesn't use their cell phone to take pictures? It's
The right arrow button.
okay. Oops. I think I'm on Dwight's present. Oh, okay, came back. All right, came back. I was on Dwight's presentation, I think. Okay, so let's see. All right, so is there anyone who doesn't use their cell phone to take pictures?
You talk and I'll try and do it.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you, I have a series of these, so I'm just going to share one today on how you can use your cell phone to transform your life. And it is more than, okay, so it is more than just taking pictures, how I'm going to show. And I normally don't mess up things like this, but it looks like I messed up something. And and it's more than just taking selfies. That's what my first slide says. It's more than just taking selfies, because I am selfie challenged as a photographer. I cannot take a good selfie. I'm used to pointing the camera out, but not pointing the camera in. So here we're about to go here. So he fixed it. Thank you.
The right side.
Okay, right side. So no, we're not just going to be learning how to take better selfies. In fact, as I said, I'm selfie challenged, and in fact, this is the way I do selfies. And so that I never mess up. And you know what? This can really help your creativity. If you, these little shadow images, I could even put together a gallery of these and have them on display, so try that sometime. Okay, first I'll tell you a little bit about me, and this is me over the years. I started my company, The Image Maker, in 1985. I had a studio in Moreno Valley for a number of years. I've been involved in a lot of community things. I have won some awards. And I have, one thing that I started in 2005 is photography-based empowerment programs for girls and women. So I work a lot with adolescent and teen girls and helping them to build self-esteem, self-value. In addition, they learn how to take better pictures. And I also have a coaching program with women, and we use photography. So I have a lot of creativity involved, because you know, when you build up, when you expand your creativity, you're expanding yourself. Oh, and another thing I do, I produce a TV show. It's called Silver Sage. I feature people that are 50 and over that are doing interesting things and showing that the second half of life can be better, as good, if not better, than the first half of life. So currently for my television program, I'm just going to throw this out here, I am looking for people, this time at least, well, they could be 50 and over, but 60 and over, that are involved in some type of creative endeavor that they've started. And so if you know anyone that does pottery, what else am I looking for? Okay, I already have someone that does photography and someone that paints. So I'm looking for other creative ventures that people are involved in that are 60 and over. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about visualization, and there's an ingredient to add to that to make it more powerful. We're going to talk about overturning negatives with positives and unblocking your creative flow. And I'm going to tell you why you need a happy book. A happy book? You'll find out what a happy book is, okay. Now, Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So in talking about visualization, this is creating a vivid mental picture of something that you want to accomplish. Is there anyone here now that uses visualization? You know, you visualize a goal and you work towards it, and okay. Visualizing what it is you want to accomplish. Now, one way this was first brought out was Olympic ski team, that the trainer, there was a psychologist involved, and he showed them how to envision winning. And so it's not that you just sit there and you think, oh, I'm going to win this. You know, you have to put some effort into it. It is a process to doing that. But visualization does work. Well, you can even ask our former governor. It's like any kind of goal he goes for, he wants to do, he will visualize it. And so he probably even envisioned himself being the governor. So you create, like he says, you create a vision of who you want to be, and then you live that picture as if it were already true. Jack Nicklaus talks about how he uses visualization in order to reach his goals. We also have Lindsey Vonn, and she says she's always visualizes the runs before she does it, even down to the turns and everything that she's going to make. Now the reason why this works is, I don't know if I can get that little thing to play. Okay. There is a science behind visualization, and it has to do with the neural pathways in the brain. So even when you see in your mind yourself doing something, you're creating a neural path. You don't actually have to be doing it. So it's just like when you're practicing your scales in music. You know, you're creating those neural pathways. I mean, you get to the point where you just know how to do it by rote. So when you're thinking, when you're visualizing in your mind, you're still creating those neural pathways in the brain. Now the thing about visualization is this. You have to be specific and consistent. So for instance, specific. You can't just say, oh, I want to lose weight. Okay, it's like, how much weight do you want to lose? What is the process you're going to go through? How are you going to look and feel after you lose that weight? Or not enough to just say, I want to run a race. I want to run a marathon. I mean, you have to visualize yourself doing that. So I'm going to share my own little story about running a marathon. I haven't done the marathon yet, but I have done it. 3 half marathons. Okay, so about 10 years ago, I decided, hey, I want to get out and do something I've always wanted to do. I always wanted to run a race. And so I'll wait till I get in my 50s to do that. So anyway, so I started working. I had to build up my strength to do that. But I would take time, and I would imagine myself, you know, I would take time out the day, myself running and completing the race. And so I joined up with some running groups, with a running group up here. Now, the other ladies in the group, they were like my daughter's age. I mean, I was the mother of the group, and I will say, no, I was the oldest one, but I would say that they were these fantastic runners, and they would, I would always get left behind. And that was it, but I had to be okay with that, because I'm not fast, like, you know, but I'm steady. And so, and here's even a post I put on Facebook once when we went out for a run, and I'm like, here I am, dragging up the rear again. But I stayed with it. I stayed with it, and I would take my time to sit there and visualize myself running this race. Of course, in my mind, I wanted to be like, you know, that cartoon, or the, they don't call them cartoons, but the, well, anyway, the Disney movie Pocahontas, you know, and how she'd be running through and everything. So, you know, what didn't get quite that agile and everything, but I would visualize what I was going to do. And so I have medals, I have bling. That's the thing you go for, is the bling. So this is me and my races and different medals and things that I've won. So, but me practicing visualization helped me to accomplish this. That and not giving up, because I was the slowest person, because you're not going to always be the fastest or the best, but are you steady, and do you keep on with what it is that you want to do? Okay, and then you have to be consistent, and like take time aside every day if you can for just a few minutes. Decide what time of the day is better for you, and just visualize yourself reaching your goals and what it is that you want to do. Now, this is what's usually missing with the visualization part. Pictures. So what do you look like as this successful person? That's where the pictures come in. What do you look like? And I use this with my girls' groups. I have them photograph, or have themselves photograph accomplishing their goals. So what do you look like when you accomplish that goal? What do you look like? Okay, so if you're going for the biggest salesperson of the year or whatever, how does that look? How do you feel? But say like with the kids that I work with, like the one young lady there, she wants to be a cook. So what does that look like, a baker? So there's a picture of her with the baking things. The other young lady with the door open, she was a foster care. One of these girls that had, she had, what is it, aged out of foster care. So she was an adult, she was 18. And so this represents that doors of opportunity are open to her. This is the picture that she did. Doors of opportunity are open to her. So this is something she could look at and see that, you know, she had opportunities and things ahead of her. So pictures help you to get a picture of yourself at the, what you will look like at the completion of that goal. In fact, this is used in therapy, phototherapy. They have people have themselves photograph. What do you look like when you've accomplished that goal? So, 3 takeaways from this part. The practice of visualization, it creates neural pathways in your brain. Your visualization must be specific and consistent, and by you adding pictures of your accomplishing your goals, it strengthens the process. Now, unblocking your creative flow. This all ties together. Okay, so these are things that block creative flow: stress, worry, overwhelm, fear, self-criticism. So these are some things that can be blocking your creative flow. Now, research shows that after thinking about happy events for just 12 minutes, that people feel better about themselves, they're more focused, they're more optimistic about the future and are more positive about what they can accomplish. So if you just take 12 minutes, when you're having you're having stress and things, and your creativity is blocked and you're just done with whatever, take 12 minutes out of just sit back and relax, take 12 minutes and think about things that make you happy. And think about, that good time you had last week, last year, 10 years ago, or whatever. But something that makes you happy, because it will help unblock your creative flow. Now, what I've started, or what I say, is make a happy book. Okay, so what's a happy book? A happy book is a little small album that you put together of pictures representing those good times. Now, where your phone comes in with this is you can go and take pictures of things that make you happy, or maybe you have a award on your wall or something, and you can't take that and put it in an album, but you can take a picture of it. So you can go around taking pictures of things that make you happy to put them in this album. Now, the happy book itself, you can just get a little bitty album. It should be something that's portable, and put pictures in it. So while you're taking that 12 minutes, you're looking through things that make you happy. You're looking through those happy moments. And I have little workshops where people make happy books. So I meant to bring one, but I forgot it. But make a happy book. Okay, so what will your happy book have in it? Okay, so like for me, it came back. I have a rose garden, so I like roses and things like that. So I take pictures of those and I put them in my happy book. Okay. Also, just being a gardener, period, I have see, that's a picture of me when I grew some sweet potatoes, and I grew it from a sweet potato, and it was and then just to see those things grow, I mean, that was like, wow. Okay, I'm a simple person like that. I put a seed in the ground. When I see a little green something, I get excited because I'm like, oh, it's growing. Oh, wow, this is so cool. I mean, to me, it's really something. You get this little seed, and it just makes more things. But these were actually came from potatoes that I had to take the little spuds off and plant them. And so that is something that's just, you see the big smile on my face. Also, I had to put this one photo that there was a rainbow. My garden was at the end of the rainbow. And this is not photoshopped, okay? This is a picture I actually took. My garden's at the end of the rainbow. Okay, so my joy in gardening. Okay, another thing I have are pictures of myself and my two daughters about the same age, and we got that same cheesy grin. So that's something that makes me, so that's us, in case you didn't know, I'm the one in the middle, but anyway, the black and white picture. But just the pictures of us, these are things that make me happy. Okay, now in addition to your happy book, when you're having a problem with creative flow, or you're blocked or something, find some funny videos, cartoons, or TV shows that make you laugh. I love Lucy. Okay, I like Foghorn, well anyway, that rooster that says, boy, if you don't, him, Foghorn, Leghorn, whatever. And so find things like that. And, okay, you guys might have seen, this thing cracks me up every time. I'm just gonna show this little video real quick. And then that's the end, but anyway. But I'm gonna leave you with this. He's barking at a cat. Okay, so, oh, and just one other thing. This is a Joel Osteen thing. It says, celebrate you. When nobody else celebrates you, learn to celebrate yourself. When nobody else compliments you, then compliment yourself. It's not up to other people to keep you encouraged. It's up to you. Encouragement should come from the inside. Thank you.
I'd like to speak to you today on how to make an oral presentation that you can be proud of. And I think we've all experienced the notion that when people are asked, what are you most afraid of? A lot of people say, giving a speech, standing in front of an audience and trying to articulate some kind of a presentation. And I can understand that to an extent, because when you're up here, there's nowhere to hide. I can't hide behind this. And people are going to be looking at you. They're going to form an opinion of what you look like, how you present yourself, your intellect, and your values, and your likes and dislikes, and all of that. So it is kind of disarming. You're just out there for everybody's opinions. But if you know how to handle it, instead of being a fearful experience, it can be a great opportunity. Now, there are certain routine things that you just have to take care of if you're going to speak in front of a group. And I'm not going to fix these all right now, but I do need to enumerate them. First of all, you need to handle your voice. You need to be able to project your voice so that people can hear you and understand you. You need to be familiar with the setting of where you're going to speak. Is it indoors or outdoors? Well, that's kind of a must you need to know. And if it's outdoors, doesn't that present other potential problems? Is it going to be too windy to keep your notes on the lectern? Do you even get a lectern? This is sometimes called a podium, but lectern, I guess, is the proper term, I'm told. And so you've got to find out about these things. What about the equipment that you're going to use? Microphone. If you're going to use a microphone, do you really understand how to use it? A lot of people hold it out here. They don't get a lot of results by doing that. You pretty much have to speak down the top of the microphone generally. So you got to get comfortable with that. Projector, laptop, PowerPoint, Zoom. Is all of this involved? Are you checked out to where you can do that? I'm not even going to try to pretend to you that I am, but I do have a pretty good assistant here. So if you can't handle it, you got to get somebody lined up who can, right? So you don't have to worry about it. Just know that it's taken care of. And then you also need to know about your audience. Who is your audience? And what do they know about the topic you're already going to be talking about? Do they know more than you do? Are they at a higher level than you are about this particular topic? It could be, and that's fine. That doesn't mean you can't talk on that, but you have to approach them where they are and respect where they are. And if they know more than you do about something, you have to acknowledge that and just fit in where you fit in. So these are things that, just get ready. You're going to have to fix these routine things. But here's some things we want to really develop today. What are you going to speak on? In general, you should probably speak on something that you already know something about. You need to be familiar with the topic. And it could be from a lifetime of your job experience. It could be following a hobby. It could be whatever. But you're comfortable with it, and you know that you can find out more. Doing research these days is not that hard, right? Not only do we have the old-fashioned ways, we have the internet. So we can round it off. We can get a few more details that we needed to know, and we can find out more about the topic. Now, all presentations need two purposes. One is a general purpose. And a general purpose generally has two words in it. To persuade. Good general purpose. Most presentations probably are for that purpose of getting somebody to take action on a certain thing. Or we could say to convince. That's more of a cerebral thing, so we have somebody believing one thing and our purpose is to convince them of something else. There are other things that come in, you could say to entertain. That's a legitimate purpose of a presentation. Or to inform. And so we decide what the purpose is. Why are we standing in front of this group? And then we need to develop a specific purpose. Now, a specific purpose has more detail, and it really tells us what we're doing in front of the group. So I'm going to give you an example of a specific purpose, and that is to persuade people in your audience to donate money to the Dalby Group Home for Displaced Children. Aha! Now we got some specifics. We know exactly what we are trying to accomplish in front of this audience. Now, you do this with a paradigm. What's the little thing up in the top right-hand corner doing there? Never mind, I'm going to get rid of it right now. Maybe. No, it's going to, oh, it gives me the next one, which I could do without, but that's okay. We'll make it work. So, the paradigm is a pyramid. Now, I didn't make this up. This actually came from somebody much smarter and wiser than me, and his name is Aristotle, okay? And he, of course, was the Greek philosopher who lived more than 300 years before the time of Christ. And he was a scholar and a writer and an intellect, and he liked a lot of topics, but one of them is logic and rhetoric. So rhetoric being the art of speaking in front of a group, and logic, just the way of thinking and coming to different conclusions and results. So notice in this pyramid here, it's a perfect pyramid. And you see the representation of building blocks inside of it, right? So this is for our building a structure, which is a metaphor for the information that we're putting together. And the purpose of this structure is to keep out extraneous and irrelevant information. Our goal is to get to the climax at the top, the apex of this pyramid, and fill it full of knowledge. But here's what happens sometimes to a speaker. We've got that little nodule there, which represents a diversion. So what could that be? That could be the speaker knew of this joke. He knew of a funny story, and he just could not resist. He had to throw it into the mix. Now, it had nothing to do with the presentation that he is making, but he just thinks it's so funny he can't help himself, right? You ever done that? So that's no good. That is not going to help him accomplish his specific purpose of raising money for this home. Now look at this one. That's somebody just gone wild, right? And he's all over the place. He is having trouble staying focused himself, and it's going to be very difficult to raise money from this group since he's messing around with the structure so much. This one is one of my favorites because what people do, look, this guy just completed the perfect pyramid. And he was done. He didn't know he was done, so he dropped a big boatload of information on top of that. And everything on top of the pyramid is not helpful at all. In fact, by the time he got finished dropping that load, people probably forgot what his purpose was in dealing with them. So you have to respect the pyramid. Now, this is not a pyramid at all, right? it's just a brick. It's a block of information. And the speaker had no idea what he was trying to accomplish. I have heard people, and I think this is one of the most ridiculous pieces of advice for a speaker. They seem to tell young people this a lot. Get in front of an audience. Okay, here's what you do. You tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. I can't think of a more insulting little piece of advice for intelligent members of an audience or the speaker himself. And this is just like it, big circle. No shape to it, no contour, no purpose that's evident. But we want to stick to this. Remember, the purpose of the pyramid is to build these blocks of information inside the pyramid and to keep extraneous, distracting information out of the way. It will not help you. We know you know little cute jokes and everything, but that will not help you. So I do want to kind of demonstrate this a little bit as we're going to metaphorically fill this pyramid with some information. So I need to convey some points of view to the members of my audience to accomplish this purpose. And one thing I need to convince people of is that the need for this home, this group home, is great. Now, you can never, this is really part of Aristotle's doctrine here, is that when you make an assertion, you can't just leave it floating there in the air and walk away from it. You've got to reinforce it. You've got to support it. How are you going to do that? Well, many ways. Citing examples that are commonly known to people, giving statistics, maybe a law, whatever it might be. And so you have got to support it. So I might say something like this: the need for the home is great, and I might say, well, there's a shortage of foster homes in this part of San Bernardino County. I might make another point of the fact that in the Old Town area of Victorville, over the past 12 months, 48 children were picked up by the police in the middle of the night, and they had to find a place for them to be safe. And, you know, when you have that kind of a situation, need for this home is kind of a home is great. And I might say something like the number of broken homes is high in the Inland Empire, and the number of minors who need to be placed in an adult supervised home is the greatest in this whole county. And so if I were speaking for 45 minutes, I would spend more time developing this point. But we're going to let that be an example of how we would develop the point. So now I've laid part of the foundation in the base of this pyramid. Now I'm going to move up a little bit higher with another major point. So I might want to say the people who run the home are caring and well qualified. Well, if you were going to consider donating any money towards a home like this, you would want to be convinced of that, right? You wouldn't want to donate it to a group of ne'er-do-wells. So I'm going to try to convince the people in the audience and bringing them along with me to believe what I'm asserting right now. So I say maybe Mr. and Mrs. Doug Johnson run the home. Doug is a retired police officer, so you know he organizes his life with order and calm and rules and so forth. And so he's a good person to have on the job. We might say something about Doug's wife, Diane, who counsels the girls in the home and cooks and helps in so many ways. And both Doug and Diane are great role models for the kids. Good to know. See, now, the reason I can never just make an assertion and walk away from it, somebody's going to doubt it. Well, who runs the play? We don't even know anything about them. And so we've got to get down there and support the assertion once again. And I might put this information in. Right now, the facility houses 23 boys and girls. And when the expansion takes place, an additional 12 children will live at the Dalby Group home. Okay, people hopefully starting to get a favorable impression of this establishment. And so I'm moving up to towards the apex now, and I'm going to make another important point. I might say something like, you know, the home makes a big difference in the lives of children. And then I'd have to support that, so I might say in the 10 years of its existence, the Dalby home has witnessed over 50 minors graduate from high school. Wow, pretty good. I might add that many have entered various branches of the armed forces, including the Navy and the Coast Guard. So now I'm starting to feel really good about this. Some have entered college, and others have gotten training to become plumbers and electricians. Now I'm really getting enthusiastic. So let's suppose I have given enough information to come right up to the top, to the apex of this pyramid, and I say something like, love and hope and purpose have been generated into the lives of these young people. I mean, this is a good thing. Why wouldn't you want to invest any money in something like this? That's where I hope I'm at right now as we climb to the top, to the apex of the pyramid. But now at the apex, here's the thing that is usually very effective. If you've built a strong structure with this knowledge, if we can now tell an inspirational and emotional story to soften everybody's heart just a little bit and get them to take that step and write the check and get it done, then we've had a successful presentation. And so that's the idea. Now, what you want to do, once you get all of this information put together, you've got an outline for a presentation, it fulfills your specific purpose. So you're not straying away from the pyramid. You've got information that is relevant and good and will help be the thing that potential donors need to know. Then what you're going to do is you're going to rehearse. And I mean rehearse out loud. Now, I never even dreamed that in making this presentation, I would speak right after somebody who mentioned neural pathways. Thank you very much. I never heard anybody else talk about it. But what happens is you want to rehearse and rehearse out loud because the brain does create neural pathways. And when you're speaking, if you've done enough rehearsal and you're familiar enough with it, your brain assists you in finding and recalling the things that you have prepared to speak about. And it does it through neural pathways. And if you speak out loud, you create neural pathways that are more defined. If you just do it silently, the results are negligible. And so you want to get out there, and I know if somebody walks in on you, they think you're crazy, but it's worth it because you're paying the price to really master the information, and that is what is needed. Don't wing it. Right, Bob? Don't wing it, because people will be able to tell. And you just can't fool them. You can't say, well, I've done this for 43 years. I don't need to rehearse anything. Well, if you want to be smooth and if you want to be most effective, you owe it to yourself and to all the people who are taking the time to listen to you to make it something special. And that's one way to make sure that you do that. Now, one of my favorite people of all time is this man, Winston Churchill. He has a beautiful quote about public speaking. He says, "There is nothing like oratory. It is a skill that can turn a commoner into a king." And if you take your efforts in public speaking seriously, if you really give the attention to detail that this warrants, and you apply excellence to this effort, you will see that Sir Winston Churchill was 100% correct. Thank you so much today.